You thought no one had noticed. You smile secretly when you think of him or her. You pretend to be indifferent when his name is mentioned. You try to extinguish that quiet fire in your heart, telling yourself, it's just a feeling. It will pass. But there is one reality you cannot ignore. Allah knows. He knows what your heart is trying to hide from the whole world. He knows that you love him. And if he knows, then perhaps this feeling has a direction, a meaning, a trial, or a blessing. So, what should we do now? Should we hope, pray, forget, or move on? In this message, we will delve into what it truly means to love someone while walking with God. It's not just a matter of the heart. It's a matter of faith, patience, and guidance. And what you discover in the next few minutes could well change the way you love forever. 1. Silent gratitude. Allah knows your heart before you dare to speak. You've never said his name aloud in your dua. You've never dared to talk about it to a friend. But every time you meet his gaze, your heart speaks, silently. He says what no tongue dares to articulate. He confesses what your soul still tries to deny. Sometimes, all it takes is a discreet smile, a simple salam, a glance exchanged in a hallway, at a meeting, at an event, and your heart begins to ache. Not with pain, no, more like a strange mixture of hope and confusion. And yet, you keep it all to yourself. You walk with modesty. You pray regularly. You pay attention to your behavior because you want to remain dignified. But what you feel, you don't always control. You tell yourself it's probably nothing. Or maybe it's a trial. Or worse, you blame yourself, thinking that the simple fact of feeling means you're weak, distracted, diverted. But let me tell you something. Your heart may have been waiting to hear. Allah knows. Before you speak, before you even understand what you feel, he knew. Al-Khabir, Al-Latif. He who knows the hidden details, the secret heartbeats, the prolonged silences. He does not judge your feelings. He saw them form. He saw them grow. And he knows whether this feeling is noble or deviant. Feeling is not a sin. It is not a flaw in your heart. It is a human reality. And sometimes it is even a reminder from Allah. A reminder that your heart is still alive. But what you do with this inner life is where the test lies. You can love with decency. You can feel with respect. You can have a weakness, yet remain strong in your worship. You see, your attachment to this person. Perhaps this is where a private conversation between you and your Lord begins. A conversation without words, just a heart that trembles, and a Lord who listens. You don't need to run away from what you feel, but you must guide it. You must elevate it. You must submit it to the one who created you capable of love, because what you feel can bring you closer to God or distance you from yourself. So take this feeling, this thrill, this doubt, this little light in your heart, and present it to Allah. Silently say to him, you know, you see, you hear, so guide me. And in this whisper of your heart, you will understand that you were never alone with your emotion. You were seen, you were heard, you were understood, even before you dared to admit that your heart had already spoken. 2, what you do with this feeling is what determines its barakah. You feel something, and Allah knows. But do not confuse divine knowledge with divine approval. What you feel does not necessarily become a blessing simply because He is witness to it. What determines barakah is what you choose to do next. There is a huge difference between an attachment that pushes you toward the light and an attachment that chains you to illusions. So ask yourself some serious questions. 1. Do you hide what you feel out of modesty and fear of Allah? Or do you let your heart wander freely in the movies you create for yourself? Love is not forbidden, but carelessness with sentiment
can lead you astray more subtly than you imagine. 2. Do you make sincere dua without falling into obsession? There is a difference between saying, "Oh Allah, if it is good for me, make it easy for me," and repeating 1,000 times, "Make it be him, make it be her." Sincerity is recognized by the openness of the heart, not by fixation on a name. 3. Are you asking for the person, or are you asking for guidance? There are those who absolutely want to obtain someone, and those who want to be led to where there is peace. One seeks a way out, the other seeks a destination chosen by God. Which of the two are you, really? 4. Are you building something lawful, or do you silently nurture your attachment, watching their stories, rereading their messages, waiting for a sign? This is where the truth comes into play. Barakah never descends on a bond built in the shadow of disobedience. And above all, remember, Allah is watching you in this phase. He is watching to see if your heart is ready to make a sacrifice for Him. If it is capable of saying, "Oh Allah, if it is not for me," gently remove it and put your light in its place. Because if you show that your love for Allah is stronger than your attachment to this person, you open the door to transformation. Yes, He can transform what you feel. He can purify this bond, make it lawful, serene, blessed. But He will only do this if you invite Him with your actions, not just with your hopes. Attraction is the beginning. Intention is the path. Barakah is the reward. And it only comes when you show Allah through your behavior that you are worthy of receiving a love that honors Him. 3 feelings are a test, not proof. You feel something strong, something that tightens your chest when you see it, something that makes your heart beat faster. And sometimes, without warning, more painfully. And then you believe. You believe that because it's intense, it's divine. That because it's deep, it's a sign. But listen carefully. The intensity of a feeling is not proof of Allah's will. Just because your heart burns for someone doesn't mean that person was written for you. Sometimes that fire was lit, not to unite you, but to purify you. Don't confuse a test with a destination. There are feelings that Allah allows to arise simply to teach you how to better manage what you feel, to teach you detachment, to invite you to control your passions rather than blindly following them. You see, sometimes Allah shows you what your heart wants, solely to teach you what your soul needs, and that need is often more silent, less exciting, but so much healthier. There is wisdom in the other person's lack of response, a hidden message in their silence. There is mercy in the fact that this person isn't looking your way, and you experience it as rejection. But Allah knows its protection. This no disguised as passion, this unfulfilled dream, this unrequited bond. This is sometimes what He uses to bring you back to yourself, so that you understand that it's not intensity that makes it right, but the light He brings to a relationship. You want this person. You want them so much that you cry and you're subdued. But have you even asked if He wants them for you? Have you dared to say, "Oh Allah, if this bond turns me away from you, remove it"? Have you dared to place your will on the ground to raise His in your heart? Because sometimes your heart wants one thing, but your destiny, written by the one who sees the invisible, wants to offer you another, better, more soothing, less burning, but more lasting. Don't be one of those who take intensity as proof. Be one of those who take guidance as a compass. And remember, just because you feel strongly doesn't mean it's good for you. Just because you love it doesn't mean it's meant for you. And just because you pray for something doesn't mean Allah will give it to you. But if He doesn't give it to you, it's because He loves you enough to save you from what you don't yet see. 4.
When love becomes a prayer and not an obsession, there is a sweetness that is born when love ceases to be a cage and becomes a prayer. When your attachment no longer clings to the person, but clings to the one who created hearts. Because yes, you can love someone without that love becoming poison. You can feel without breaking down, but only if you learn to transform that feeling into adoration. Do you know when love becomes an obsession? When you live waiting for someone to respond, when every notification makes you hope for a message, when every silence becomes a wound, when your heart begins to revolve around a creature instead of revolving around your Lord. But love becomes light when you place it in the hands of Allah, like placing a precious jewel in fingers capable of caring for it. That is where true peace begins. Not when the other person meets your expectations, but when you entrust your expectations to the one who will never disappoint you. When your heart speaks thus in your sujood, O Allah, you know what is within me. You know how I feel. But if this bond does not bring me closer to you, if this love threatens to stifle my faith, then purify me. Remove it gently, like removing a thorn without tearing the skin. This kind of dua is powerful, not because it changes the other person, but because it changes you. He enables you to say, I love him, but I love your will even more. And from then on, your feeling is no longer a trap. It becomes an ibadah. Do you understand? It's no longer just an attachment. It's a bond that pushes you to pray more, to seek more, to trust more. You no longer chase a human answer. You walk serenely toward divine wisdom. And sometimes, Allah gives you that person back. But in a version you could never have reached without going through this stage of submission. And sometimes, He takes you away. But He leaves you with a stronger, freer heart, more turned toward Him. And that gift, no one but Him can give you. So if you feel something, don't be ashamed. Don't run away. But don't cling blindly either. Cling with tawakkul. Cling with faith. Cling by saying to Allah, what you choose for me is better than what I feel. And remember, it is not the person who gives peace. It is submission to Allah through this feeling that creates it. 5. What if it's not her? Accept the sweetness of the trial. What if it wasn't her? What if this person you see as a future was actually just a passing moment, a mirror to reveal something deeper within you, a sacred detour planned not to unite you but to build you up? You know, it takes a certain spiritual maturity to say, O Allah, if it's not her, then make my heart accept what you have written. It's difficult because you saw yourself with her, because you imagined an us in plans, prayers, maybe even in children. And now, here you are, facing an emptiness that makes no sound but that hurts. But it is in this pain that a subtle sweetness hides. The knowledge that Allah, in His wisdom, never takes something away, without wanting to give you something better. Sometimes, He allows you to feel love, just so that it's this feeling that teaches you detachment. He lets you love, so that you understand that loving doesn't mean possessing, and that not every feeling necessarily has to end in a story. You see, you prayed, you asked, you were sincere. And perhaps instead of answering you with a yes, Allah answered you with a silence filled with mercy. Not because He didn't like your dua, but because He liked your posture. He saw your patience. He saw how you drew closer to Him through this ordeal. He saw that you had begun to pray more, to question yourself, to purify your intentions. And that is a fruit worth more than the union you were waiting for. Perhaps He took this person away from you, just to protect your inner light, because He knew that a future with her would have extinguished you. And you wouldn't have understood right away, but He, Ar-Rahman, kept you. even against yourself. You see, Allah is not a granter of wishes. He is the master of wisdom. He answers not according to what you want, but according to what your soul needs to go through. So yes, maybe she won't come back. Maybe she was a chapter, not the whole book, but what you have become through this story. Your closeness to Allah, your maturity, your rediscovered gentleness, that is a victory. And sometimes the real gift isn't the person, it's you, renewed, reformed, re-educated by an ordeal that left no void, only a new light. 6. When Allah says yes in calm. What if the divine yes didn't look like what you imagined? Not a big sign, not an explosion of answers, but just a silent calming. A heart that no longer panics, a thought that no longer hurts. You see, sometimes when Allah writes a story between two souls, He doesn't do it loudly. He does it calmly. It's not a race. It's not an obsession. It's a slow breathing, made of modesty, respect, and trust. Maybe she feels it too. Perhaps she too raised her hands to the sky on a dark night and said, "O Allah, if it is he, then calm my heart, and if it is not, then gently remove it." And you, for your part, make the same supplication, quietly, without publicizing, without showing. Because true prayers, the truest ones, are often the most silent. Allah doesn't need you to shout to be heard. He doesn't need you to force yourself to unite. He only needs your tawakkul. When two hearts seek each other without rushing, when two paths cross but do not invade, when two people put Allah before their own passions, then, sometimes, Allah says, yes. And you don't recognize this yes by euphoria, but by stability. You don't see it in speed, but in wisdom. There is a fluidity, an ease, a light that doesn't burn, a clarity that doesn't disturb, a presence that doesn't crush your faith. That's when you understand that halal love, the one that Allah allows, is not a fire that consumes, but a light that guides. It has nothing to prove. It moves forward with modesty. It doesn't disrupt your relationship with Allah, it strengthens it. And if you are in this waiting phase, where you feel, where you hope, but where you refuse to force things, know that this is perhaps the greatest sign of maturity, because the calm in your heart can be Allah's most beautiful answer. No abrupt no, no dramatic yes, but a silent alignment. So remain in that calm. Don't upset the balance with impatience. Don't rush what Allah is gently building. If He knows that you love Him, if He sees that you both pray sincerely, and that this union is good in His eyes, then He will know how to bring you together, and perhaps it will be the sweetest of unions, one that no passion precedes, but all barakah accompanies. Your heart is not invisible. Your attachment, your hesitation, your hope, everything has been seen. Everything has been heard. Everything has been noted. Allah knows how you feel about this person, but what He cares most about is what you choose to do with it. So turn your love towards Him before you turn it towards anyone else. Make your feelings a dua, not a distraction. And remember, whatever you entrust to Allah, He will always make it better, even if it's different from what you hoped for. If this message touched your heart, share it with someone who needs it. Save it for those days of doubt. And tell me in the comments, what did you understand today about your feelings and about Allah? Because sometimes a sincere heart only needs a reminder to realign itself. And perhaps this was that reminder.